electron transport chain. In this, we are going to study how the food we take in will combine with the oxygen we respire in to give energy, that is ATP. Okay. Now going back to the source of energy on this plant. You know what is the source of energy on this plant? It is sunlight. So when sunlight falls on plant, the chlorophyll in the plant leaf, it absorbs the energy from the sunlight, and actually what happens there is there is excitation of electrons. Electrons get excited, that is they will take the energy and go into some high energy state, and this electrons rich energy rich and electrons they form glucose in the plant. Okay, from glucose other things will be formed, that is amino acids and fats in the plants. Now we eat these carbohydrates, that is glucose, proteins and fats from the plants. So after going into our body, the reverse will happen, that is the energy contained in the glucose is released. How? In the form of electron, because in the plant glucose was formed by trapping electrons. Now here the electrons will be released, and these electrons will be taken up by some vitamins. We call it as the coenzyme. Okay, and from these vitamins the electrons will pass through electron transport chain. Okay, and when the electrons pass through this chain, there is release of energy and ATP is formed. How? We'll see now. So the food we take in is oxidized by the enzymes present in the body. Food containing carbohydrates, proteins and fats, they are oxidized by enzymes. Okay, during this process some reducing equivalent, that is NADH and FADH2 are produced, which are electron rich in nature. So the electrons present in glucose is released and taken up by the active form of vitamin niacin, NADH, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide reduced, and FADH2, the active form of B complex vitamin riboflavin, that is flavin adenine dinucleotide reduced. So they have taken the electrons from the food materials. So what happens during biological oxidation? That means oxidation of these reduced components NADH and FADH2. Electrons are transferred through electron transport proteins, which are arranged in a specific chain to form the electron transport chain. So there are some proteins, they are arranged in a particular sequence, in a order. Okay, and electrons will flow through these proteins, right? And this ETC is situated in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Why? Because when the electrons are flowing through the proteins, these electrons should not be leaked out into the cell. If it is leaked out, there will be electrical short in our body. Just like in our homes, the copper wire is there, it is insulated with plastic. Why? Because the current will not leak out. So in our body also, the electrons flow is nothing but the current passing through the proteins. So it will not leak out if it is inside the membrane, because membrane is a lipid bilayer, right? Some amount of energy is released with transfer of electrons from one component to another component. So some energy is released when electron is going from one protein to another protein. Okay, so whenever there is release of 7.4 kilocalories of energy or a little more, their ATP formation takes place. Okay, so when electrons are going from one protein to another protein, there will be release of energy, and wherever there is release of 7.4 kilocalories, then ATP formation will take place, right? Now this is the list, or this is the chain of the components of electron transport chain. Okay, so you can see we are starting from the upside NADH, within brackets some number is written, that is known as its redox potential, minus 0.32, that is the redox potential of NADH. And this NADH has taken 2 electrons from oxidation of maybe carbohydrates, proteins or fats. So these 2 electrons are released from NADH, and the arrows goes to the other side saying 2 hydrogens are also released. So 2 electrons and 2 hydrogens are released from the NADH, the vitamin, active form of vitamin, and it goes to the first protein of the electron transport chain known as NADH dehydrogenase or flavoprotein. Its redox potential is minus 0.30. Then NADH dehydrogenase gives these 2 electrons to the next protein of the electron transport chain known as ubiquinone or coenzyme Q, and its redox potential is plus 0.04. What is this redox potential? It shows the difference between the previous electron transport chain protein and the next electron transport chain protein. So when the redox potential is difference to as minimum, that is if you calculate from minus 0.3 to plus 0.04, this much of redox potential difference is required for ATP formation. That's why you see ADP is converted to ATP here. So there is a formation of ATP when electrons flow from NADH dehydrogenase to ubiquinone. Okay. Now you can see here at ubiquinone, FADH2 also gives its electrons and the hydrogens are released. So FADH2 gives electrons directly to ubiquinone. Therefore, loss of 1 ATP production is there here. Okay. So from wherever electrons are coming to ubiquinone, either from NADH or FADH2, they are then transported to cytochrome B. Redox potential is plus 0.07. Then from cytochrome B, it goes to cytochrome C1. And here, the redox potential difference is sufficient to release energy to the extent of 7.4 kilocalories. Therefore, ADP is converted to ATP. There is formation of ATP here also. Then cytochrome C1 gives electrons to cytochrome C, whose redox potential is plus 0.25. Okay. Then here the difference is very less between cytochrome 1 and cytochrome C. The redox potential difference is very less. So the energy release is not 7.4 kilocalories, that is, it is less than 7.4 kilocalories. There is no formation of ATP. The same thing from cytochrome C to cytochrome A, the redox potential is not sufficient to give ATP here also. So cytochrome A redox potential is plus 0.29. Then from cytochrome A, the 2 electrons flow to cytochrome A3 with redox potential 0.55. So the redox potential between cytochrome A and A3 is great or more. So here the release of energy is 7.4 kilocalories, and there is formation of ATP from ADP. And finally, cytochrome A3 gives the 2 electrons to half oxygen molecule, that is 1 atom of oxygen. Okay, that atom of oxygen takes the 2 electrons and the hydrogen coming from NADH or FADH2 and forms water. Okay, so this is how we say the carbohydrates, proteins and fats are oxidized to carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide during oxidation, water is formed here. Okay, so these are the components of electron transport. This is how the electrons flow in the inner mitochondrial membrane of the electron transport chain. So here I want to tell you something, a few things. First thing, what will happen if NADH or FADH2 gives its electron directly to water without this electron transport chain? So I'll just give you a simple example. Supposing you are in a building, in a multi-complex building on the 4th floor or above that. Now you want to come to the ground floor. How will you come down? Through the stairs or through the elevator or lift, isn't it? Right. So why you are coming through the stairs? So that the energy contained in your body at the 4th floor comes down slowly. The gravitational pull is slowly reduced. The gravitational pull at 4th floor was reducing slowly till you come to ground floor. Supposing you jump directly from the 4th floor to the ground floor, what will happen? Yes, you will end up in breaking your hands, legs, or whatever it is. So the same thing will happen. If electrons are directly given to water, to the oxygen from NADH or FADH2, there will be release of energy in the form of an atom bomb. There will be blast in the cell. Lot of energy is present in the electrons. If this energy is directly given, if electrons directly pass from NADH to oxygen, there will be a bomb blast in the body because lot of energy is released. Just like if you jump from a 4th floor to the ground floor, you will end up in breaking because of the greater gravitational pull. Likewise, the same thing will happen here. The electrons cannot directly go to oxygen. So they come down slowly, step by step. Stairs, these are the stairs. The electron transport chain are the stairs for electrons. Stairs names NADH, dehydrogenase, ubiquinone, cytochrome B, cytochrome C1, cytochrome C, cytochrome A, A3, and then to oxygen. So what happens? Slowly energy is released, and at 3 points, 7.4 kilocalories of energy is released, so that ATP is formed. Good. The second point here on this slide. You know, camel, they can survive in the desert for many days without water. How? You all know, in the hump of the camel, there is stored fat. These fats, they get oxidized and continuously form NADH and FADH2. Okay, fat is oxidizing, getting oxidized, and NADH and FADH2 are continuously formed, and electron transport is continuously operating and forming water. So like this, the camel can survive without water from outside because it is producing water within the cell, within its body, from the fat stored in the hump. Clear? So in the previous slide, we have seen that NADH, the reducing equivalent NADH, this is the active coenzyme form of the vitamin B complex vitamin niacin. Anyway, so NADH, this is formed from glucose oxidation, from amino acid oxidation, and from fatty acid oxidation also. So all this will come to the electron transport chain in the mitochondria and forms 3 ATPs. So NADH forms 3 ATPs, whereas FADH2, this is the active coenzyme form of another B complex vitamin, okay, that is riboflavin. So this is also formed by oxidation of glucose, oxidation of amino acids, oxidation of fatty acids. All these oxidations will form FADH2. So in the cytosol or from the mitochondria, it will go to electron transport chain and forms only 2 ATPs. FADH2 forms only 2 ATPs. Why? Because it enters electron transport chain at the site beyond the first site of ATP formation. Okay, So it enters through ubiquinone. This is after the first site of ATP formation in the electron transport chain. Okay. Now let us see what are the three sites of ATP in the electron transport chain. The ATP formation, three sites in the electron transport chain, or we call it as the respiratory chain. The three sites of ATP formation in the electron transport chain, or ETC, or respiratory chain are: 1. Between NADH dehydrogenase, a flavoprotein, and ubiquinone, that is coenzyme Q. This is the first site of ATP formation. The second site of ATP formation is between cytochrome B and cytochrome C1, and the last and the third one is between cytochrome A and cytochrome A3. This together is also known as cytochrome oxidase. Okay, so these are the three sites where ATPs are formed in the electron transport chain. So this slide is the main slide for you for the examination. What are the questions here? The first question will be, how many ATPs are formed when NADH is oxidized to electron transport chain? Options: A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4. Answer is C3. Or another question may be, 2 ATPs are formed in electron transport chain by the oxidation of which one of the following? A will be NADH, B FADH2, C will be TPP, D or maybe something else, NAD, something like that. Okay, so the answer will be B FADH2. There can be 4 questions in the first sentence, different types. How many ATPs are formed from NADH, or how many ATPs are formed from FADH2, or 3 ATPs are formed from which, NADH or FADH2, or 2 ATPs are formed from which compound, FADH2 or NADH. Okay, the second type of question, ATP formation site. Which one of the following is the site for ATP formation in electron transport chain? One of these 3 sites will be given, and the other 3 options will be something else other than these 3 sites in the electron transport chain only. For example, it may be CC1. Okay, it may be CC1, or maybe C1 and A, something like that. Right? So from this slide you will get most of the questions. Next, now inhibitors of electron transport chain. Just like the inhibitors of enzymes you have seen, here also in the electron transport chain also there are some inhibitors. That means there is a flow of electrons from the reducing equivalents NADH and FADH2. The electrons are flowing. In between there can be some inhibition. I'll give you a simple example. In the beginning I gave you example that at our home we have got electrical wire, copper wire, through which the current is flowing. Flow of current means flow of electrons. Okay, and on the wall we have switches, on off switch. What is that? We are inhibiting the flow of electrons. Whenever we need, we'll switch on, electrons will flow. When we don't need, we'll switch it off. We'll inhibit the flow of electrons. So light will switch on or switch off. So like that, in the electron transport chain, the electrons are flowing, and there are some chemicals, they can go and stop the flow of electrons through the electron transport chain. Okay, how? By binding to the proteins of the electron transport chain, ETC. These compounds will bind to the proteins, and the proteins cannot work to transport electrons. Okay, so this is what we are going to see here. Inhibitors of ETC are those which inhibit or stop the flow of electrons in the electron transport chain. Okay, they will stop the flow of electrons. So what will happen if electrons are not flowing? oxygen is not used, and there is no ATP production. Okay, so what will happen if oxygen is not used? That means if you don't respire, it is something like you are not respiring. If you don't respire, what will happen? Life will end. If respiration is stopped, life ends. So if the inhibitors of electron transport enter our body, the cell will die, and if more cell dies, the person will die. Okay, we'll take some example. There are many inhibitors of electron transport that are poisons. We call them poison. Okay, so at the first site of ATP formation, the chemical rotenone, amytal, they inhibit the flow of electrons. There are many more. Some examples, 2 examples are given here. At the first site of ATP formation, rotenone and amytal inhibit the flow of electrons. Then at the second site, antimycin A inhibits the flow of electrons. That is, antimycin A is the inhibitor of electron transport at the second site. And at this third site, cyanide, CN, carbon monoxide, CO, and H2S gas inhibit the flow of electrons. All these are poisons. So from this slide also you will get one question. Which one of the following is an inhibitor of electron transport chain? Or they may ask you in the reverse order. That is, carbon monoxide is ABCD, inhibitor of electron transport or something ABCD. Or it can be a specific. Which one of the following inhibitors inhibit the electron transport chain at the second site of ATP formation, or first site of ATP formation, or third site of ATP formation? Clear? Okay, all these are poisons. If they go inside our body, the cell will die. If more cell dies, the person will also die. But among these 3, 1, 2, 3, the inhibitors at the third site are more poisonous, more dangerous, more fatal. That means they are more harmful than the inhibitors at first and second site. The inhibitor at first site is not at all harmful because FADH2 can utilize oxygen, it can form ATP, so the cell will not die because FADH2 enters electron transport at beyond the first site of ATP formation. So rotenone and amytal are not poisonous, not more poisonous. Then this at the second site the poison is little more, but at the third site it is very much poisonous. Okay, now one more aspect of this electron transport inhibitors. Now you take your car for fahas. Okay, that is to check whether your car is fit to move on the road or not. The police will give you a certificate, yes, it is fit or not fit. So here we'll discuss one point. They will see how much of carbon monoxide is coming out of your exhaust at the back of the car. If you have seen the paper which is given for the passage of fahas, they will show you carbon monoxide exhaust how much in the exhaust, that is the gas coming out from the back side of your car, how much of carbon monoxide is there. If it is more than 0.03%, the fahas will be rejected. You will fail your fahas. Why? Because if the carbon monoxide is more, if your vehicle goes on the road, the carbon monoxide will be inhaled by the passengers on the road and it will be harmful for their health. Their cell will die. More carbon monoxide, if supposing there are about 50 to 60 cars on the road and you are driving a car, all are just giving carbon monoxide in high concentration, maybe 20%, 30%. Okay, 30% from each car. There are about 30 to 40 cars. there will be a lot of carbon monoxide, and you will inhale that carbon monoxide, and many cells will die. So it is harmful for your effect. That's why first always you should see that the carbon monoxide in your exhaust, car exhaust, is minimum, and your car has FAS. Otherwise it is harmful for the passengers on the road. It will inhibit the electron transport. The cells will die. Person may not die because the percentage will not be so high, but the cells will die. It may be harmful to the brain, for the kidney, or general health. Right, we'll move to the next concept, that is uncouplers of oxidative phosphorylation. So the main topic that we were discussing here was the oxidation of foodstuffs combining with oxygen to release ATP. So what is happening here? Combination is there. Combination means coupling. Coupling means linking. Okay. What is linking? The flow of electrons through electron transport chain is linked to the formation of ATP, because food will give only electrons, nothing more, and these electrons, they pass through the electron transport chain, and their flow of electrons from the electron transport chain releases some energy, ATP is formed. So that means the flow of electrons is linked to the ATP formation. Just like as I told you, the flow of electrons in the electrical cable in our house, the wire in our house, is linked to what? Switching off a light, fan, AC, or your charging of your mobile, computer, all these things. It is linked, it is coupled, we say. Here what is coupled in our text? Flow of electrons is coupled to ATP formation. So now there are some chemicals which will delink this, which will cut what? Cut the flow of electrons to ATP formation. That means electrons will flow normally, but no ATP formation. Okay, there is no formation of ATP, but electrons are flowing. In the previous slide, that is inhibitors, what we have seen, there is no flow of electrons wherever that chemical is binding. Stoppage of flow of electrons. Here electrons are flowing, oxygen is utilized, okay, but ATP is not formed. So it is uncoupled. Electron flow is uncoupled to ATP formation. So we called these chemicals as uncouplers of oxidative phosphorylation. That means phosphorylation means ATP formation. Oxidative means oxidation is going on. Electrons are flowing, going and mingling with the oxygen, oxidation of electrons, but ATP is not formed. Uncouplers. So the same sentence is given here. Uncouplers are those substances which prevent formation of ATP even though electron transport chain is normally operating. That means electrons are flowing normally, but no ATP formation. Due to the effect of uncouplers, there is a continuous flow of electrons, but there is no formation of ATP. So energy is released as heat. Some names of uncouplers are given here: 2,4-dinitrophenyl, valinomycin, gramicidin, oligomycin, and atractyloside. There are many, hundreds are there. Some examples are given here. So here another question will be there: which one of the following is an uncoupler of oxidative phosphorylation? So you should be very careful in understanding the question. Uncoupler of oxidative phosphorylation is different. Inhibitor of electron transport is different. Okay, so there will be a confusing question. Which one of the following is an inhibitor of electron transport? A option will be 2,4-dinitrophenyl, B valinomycin, C oligomycin, D may be carbon monoxide. Your answer will be carbon monoxide. Okay, uncouplers, only one will be like atractyloside A, B will be a carbon monoxide, C will be hydrogen sulfide, and something like maybe D will be hydrogen sulfide gas or cyanide, something like that. Okay, now in relation to this slide I want to tell some points. The first point is, because of this uncoupling, there is release of heat is written here. Actually this is sometimes useful to our body. That is, when we go to a cold place suddenly, we need more heat. So supposing what you do, you rub both your hands, then what will happen? The cells in your hands, their texture will change. The mitochondria membrane will be changed. Because of this change, there will be no formation of ATP, but all the heat is released as some energy is released as heat. So you feel little hot, or you shake your legs, hands, legs. When you shake the body, the cell membrane changes its structure, especially the mitochondria, and electron flow will not produce ATP. Instead, the energy is released as heat, so our body will become hot. Okay, this is one. The other one is, these uncouplers are used to reduce obesity. How? If you take one of these uncoupler, there is no formation of ATP. So our body will think we are hungry. So continuous energy is released as heat, no ATP formation. So all the fat in our body is oxidized, no ATP production. So there is no ATP production, more and more fat is dissolved. So obese persons will become lean, all the fat is dissolved. If you take this uncouplers for 1 or 2 months or 3 months, the person will become lean, no obesity. But these uncouplers are banned for use in the treatment of obesity, because it will affect your heart, you may get heart attack, it will affect your kidney failure may be there, or it will affect your liver failure may be there. So uncouplers are not recommended for reducing obesity. You should not take any uncoupler.